as you guys know, one of your strategic focus areas was community engagement and public engagement this next year. That really was because we knew we were going into our centennial year as well as 2035. So later on, we're going to talk about the action steps that have still are left to do under 2025, and I know Alan Sims is also going to talk to you about community identity with some of the exercises you're going to do tomorrow, that'll go into kind of spurring our initial conversations with 2035. But we brought in a short list, staff brought in a short list of the top consultants that do planning. Many of them are the ones that you've heard and we've worked with. Friesen Nichols is also one of them. But Friesen Nichols worked on our award-winning 2025 plan to begin with. They seemed the most aligned with kind of the future of what we're wanting to do, and also are embedded in the big moves and trying to keep some of those threads that we don't want to lose, because some of our nomenclature that we've used in our vision plan you've already got buy-in from the community, so might as well also use that while trying to also get new ideas and innovation. But along with that, we had a other consultant that came to the table that was a little bit out of left field for us, not someone that's one of the big names, and we were so impressed with Rio Planning's I would say spunk and drive, but they are I'll let them explain who they are, but they really specialize in boots on the ground public engagement, especially not leveraging, but accessing the Hispanic community, which I know has been 30% of our population is Hispanic, and we don't have a lot of those voices at the table. And so this is an opportunity for us to get now a sub-consultant for Friesen Nichols. So we created the dream team for y'all. And so I'm going to let Richard get started and kick this off, and then we'll have the dream team present.
Okay, good morning, Mayor Gilmore and members of the council. It is a pleasure to be here this morning to talk to you about the 2035. I know I'm very excited. The planning team is super excited to kick off this process. We all know that the 2025 really turned Lewisville into an exceptional community, and the 2035 will make it even more exceptional. So just to kick things off, the team will first give you an overview of the overall project. Then they'll be talking about initiation of the project, the different phases, how we're working in sustainability and resilience, and then at the end we'll have some discussion. So as far as project overview, this is Team Lewisville. We will be even more involved than we had been in the past. We were very successful in the update in 2020, where all the directors formed teams and engaged with multiple aspects of the community, and that was so effective, and I know that we will be replicating that and even putting it probably on steroids. As you can see, we have a new member here added to Team Lewisville, Karen Walls, who contributed so much to the first effort. She is now going to be an extension of staff, and she'll be guiding us, giving us advice, giving us feedback as we go along through the process. So as Claire said, we absolutely have a dream team. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
Just want to make one quick comment. So Richard says a new person on the team, but I kind of feel like we've known each other for a really long time. And I was fortunate and really pleased to work with Friesen Nichols on that initial plan. When we started that in 2013, we had no idea what an impact it would make or how successful this community would be in implementation and also in engaging the community. And so I'm really delighted to be part of this update. We had, as many of you will remember very well, when we started to do the update in 2019, we had a wonderful, gigantic event, and the way I remember it is like the day before COVID shut everything down. So this time we hope that that won't happen. Despite that, the team that's here did such an amazing job, and the council and everybody's involvement made it so successful to continue. I'm excited to see the next stage as we look now to 2035.
Okay, with that, now I will turn it over to the Dream Team for introductions.
Thank you, Richard, and I thank you all so much. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. I'm Wendy Bonneau. I'm with Friesen Nichols. I've been with Friesen Nichols 20 years now, and as they've already mentioned, I did have the great honor of working on your initial vision plan, and there's certain projects throughout your career you kind of feel like you gave birth to, and so you want to be able to watch them grow and mature, and Lewisville is definitely one of those projects for me. So I'm so excited that y'all had us back and be able to do this. I can't wait to see how you've matured over the last decade. I can't wait to see what we're going to do over the next year. Super excited. I have gone around over the last decade and I've bragged about Lewisville time and time again. I've given a lot of presentations on this city because I do think that you all have done a fantastic job of just engaging everybody. And then you just look around the room and you see all the staff and council and all the folks that have been involved. That is unique. Most people do not take on that type of commitment to a plan. Oftentimes it becomes a planning department plan. And the fact that you all have engaged Vision 2035, or will engage 2035. We are going to get James a new shirt during this process. We're going to get a new logo, I think, hopefully. But the way y'all have engaged has just been so great. So we really do appreciate it. My role now as Friesen Nichols is more of a principal in charge, and so I will definitely be involved from that aspect, making sure that we get you everything that we need. I'm fortunate to live very close in Flower Mound, so I'll be part of a lot of the local components of this, but your project manager this time will be Caitlin Admire. You're going to hear quite a bit from her today. She's fantastic. She came to us from the city of Austin and several other places before that, so she's got a lot of experience working for cities. She's fantastic. She's innovative. She brings a lot to the table. She's got kind of sustainability lens through everything that she does. So y'all are going to love working with her. So she'll be kind of the captain on this project. In addition to Caitlin, we've got Karen Chavez, Wilson Kerr, David Jones, and Connor Roberts. They are all out of our Dallas office. We all work together in our Dallas office. And so there'll be a lot of doing boots on the ground and some of our subcommittees and some of our follow-up meetings. So you'll see a lot of these people throughout the project, different people that will engage and different components. And then, as Claire's already mentioned, we have Jennifer Rangel, and I would like for her to just come give a quick introduction of herself, and then I'm going to turn this meeting over to Caitlin to go through the bulk of our presentation.
Thank you, and good morning. I am really excited to be here. My name is Jennifer Rangel, and I am the Executive Director of Rayo Planning. And I just have to say, your city is beautiful. I do live in the city of Dallas, and I've always, when I go back, I told the folks at Rayo, like, you know, your city is beautiful. I really admire the intentionality that goes behind this effort and other programs that y'all actively have at this time. As shared, our main priority, and I'll give a little bit of background about who Rayo Planning is. We are a nonprofit. As a nonprofit, our main focus is to ensure that we expand and uplift the community's voice, really focusing on the self-determination. So oftentimes, we're focused on fair housing concerns, environmental issues, or even economic development. And because of that, you know, our team will have Lara Quintero Chavez. She is a senior planner on our team, but also we will have a neighborhood leader who will serve on the role as advisor. And we'll talk a little more about the grassroots approach, but it's really focusing on connecting with the small businesses that exist within the city of Lewisville, and also them having a peer that they can lean into for advice as to, like, how do you ensure that you're able to build and grow within the city that you reside in. And as I shared, I'll pass on over to the Friesen Nichols team, but I'm really excited to share more what we have in mind, and thank you for the opportunity to be here again this morning.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right. So as Wendy mentioned, my name is Caitlin Admire. I will be serving as your project manager for the next year, 18 months through this process. And I'll be supported a lot by our Dallas team that Wendy introduced. This is going to be a lot of meetings, a lot of engagement, so that's why we have such a large kind of local team that will be supporting on all of that. So one thing I want to note today, this process, this is, your vision plan process, so there's a lot of work and production work and things like that goes into it. We are focusing on the engagement process today. So you'll see a little bit about how the engagement process works into kind of the overall work phases of the plan, but you're going to hear mostly about engagement today. So don't think that we've forgotten that we actually have to do some of the work as well, the production work, but we're going to focus on engagement. So Friesen Nichols approaches engagement with 4 kind of values or things that we seek to achieve through engagement. One is that engagement should be convenient, and that's really thinking about the times and locations that you're doing engagement efforts. Inclusive, so that's around the language we use when advertising for engagements. That is how we present data in an accessible way and information in an accessible way. And then it's also removing barriers such as childcare and things like that to engagement. Interactive, people don't want to come to boring meetings anymore, right? So interactive in terms of the exercises that we do at meetings, how we seek feedback. We don't just sit in a room and say, what do you think? We have exercises, we have focus groups, we have small group conversations, things like that are really engaging people. They're not just listening to us talk all the time. And then finally, meaningful, and this one's really, really important. Sometimes engagement can be a check-the-box exercise, and we strive for it not to be that. We want this to be meaningful engagement, that we're intentional about the feedback we collect, and then we're even more intentional about how we actually incorporate that into the products that we are producing, and that the people can actually see the way that their input directly impacted the deliverables that are being put forth. So with that, we have thought about this engagement toolbox of kind of 4 things that we'll be really focusing on for this Vision 2035 plan. One is, of course, online and virtual engagement. That's an expectation these days to have really good options for people to be able to engage from online. Neighborhood outreach, which we'll get into a little bit of detail about what that is. I know we've heard the term touch points a lot, that we want to have 3,000 touch points, I think, was the goal here. So that's our neighborhood outreach section. Public town halls or workshops, that's going to be your more traditional kind of big open house kind of events where we have presentations and things and invite people to come. And then committees and subcommittees, which we'll talk a little bit more about that as well in a moment. So digging a little bit more into this neighborhood outreach, because I think this is the part that people are maybe really interested in talking about. So again, thinking about this idea of touch points, how many people are we at least reaching for a singular touch point and hopefully engaging them to come back for additional touch points. So one of the things we've been talking about is a community touch point campaign early on in the process, and this can include a variety of interesting and creative ways of engagement that are out there these days. So you'll see things like intercept surveys, tabling, youth engagement, the vision bus. We've heard that the Parks Department has a mobile nature bus or something that we might ask them to steal at some point for this. Some guerrilla engagement. I mean, we've heard things about trivia, people doing land use planning trivia nights in their communities, things like that. Things that are fun and are just getting people out, getting people aware of the process at the very beginning so that then they will engage throughout the process going forward. And then the grassroots engagement, this is the stuff that Jennifer and Rayo will be really leading. So I'll let Jennifer talk about this a little bit.
Thank you. And for the grassroots engagement, the purpose of that is to uplift and to also support the efforts that we see on the community touchpoint campaign. The main thing that we want to also ensure, as we've heard today, one, we're wanting to ensure that people are aware about what the City of Lewisville services are, what programs do they have, what events are coming up. So there's more of that connection between the community and also the city. By building trust, what that looks for us is establishing those pathways of communication with community members. And so we've identified different stakeholder groups. One, the small businesses that exist in the area, but also the residents. The residents, of course, may reside in mobile homes, may reside in apartments, single-family housing, apartments, and the like. So it's ensuring that Rayo actively is within the community. So when you think about the grassroots engagement, it's more of a ramp up of engagement for folks to be involved on the community touchpoint campaign. So the first few months is really being within the community versus asking people to show up somewhere. So we will be at their tire shop, at the grocery store, and building and meeting people to then schedule one-on-one conversations. For us, it's really important to have that individuality approach because oftentimes when we have that connection, we build that spider web of other connections. So that includes also engaging with the property managers. Hey, what are some issues that reside in the complex? But also, too, it's establishing those collaboration efforts. So, all right, we have an active survey. Can we have a table here? Can we host an event here? So it's establishing also a two-way approach with them. Once we establish those stakeholder meetings, it's also looking and putting the feelers out, okay, what kind of groups could be developed, among these stakeholder groups? And this is why we brought in Jerry Figueroa with the Automotive Association of Oak Cliff, because there could be an instance where we do see a small business association that is established between the small restaurants, the auto shops, and the like. Again, the purpose is to establish what are these groups that exist, what are the concerns that reside, and how can we ensure that we have that communication going back and forth. All in all, we will be establishing a neighbors volunteer group, and so that will be an opportunity for the folks we engage with one-on-one on the stakeholder calls, or those folks we meet when we're tabling at the grocery store and the like. We will be funneling them into this volunteer group of neighbors, and neighbors it doesn't just mean residents, but it also includes the small businesses, the religious groups, the schools. And again, the purpose of that is to how can we support each other? The plan, one of the many things I admire about this plan that you all have established for the previous years is that it becomes like your North Star, your compass, right? And so for us, Rayo will be really important for us to share, okay, this is what the city of Lewisville is working on. What do you think? Right? What are some advice that you could provide to the city, and how can we, work together to establish that vision moving forward? And the goal would be of this group that we established of volunteers is to be that funnel for community ambassadors. So it's this grassroots approach is really a way for us to understand what's the temperature on the ground, what are some of those concerns that people have. And again, right now I'm mentioning tabling, I'm mentioning focusing, meeting with folks one-on-one, meeting as a group. But if they share, hey, we should host this type of X event, this will bring out folks in the community. That's when it's important for us to have this pathway communication with folks to give us direction at Rayo of what are some events that could make sense and could bring out more folks to one, participate on the community touchpoint campaign, the other efforts going on, but if needed to supplement those efforts, what else is needed? Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. And so in that same vein of continuing to create that spider web of the network of the community, the last thing in our neighborhood outreach is the community ambassadors. So we understand you guys already have an active community ambassadors program. The goal would be to expand that to 75 to 100 members. That's a big program of community ambassadors. That would be the biggest one I know of. So that could be really cool to be able to just kind of have that little nugget that you guys can brag about. And so we would look to engage and grow the current City Ambassadors program to just help create even additional networks out into the community. I'm pretty excited about all of this. I think we could blow that 3,000 touch point goal out of the water with some of these efforts. And you'll see too, if you're looking at our scope, we've left it pretty broad in the scope because, as Jennifer mentioned, sometimes we start getting into this and we realize we didn't know everything. I can guarantee you we're not going to know everything at the beginning. And so we have to be able to remain kind of flexible and agile to add things, take away things as needed as we go into this. So we've kind of left a chunk of time and hours and budget to address all of this kind of as we go through the process. So then the next piece, just to talk about in a little bit more detail, is this committees and subcommittees effort. This is similar to what was done for the 2025 plan, where there is a steering committee that would be based on applications from the community, and they would have 2 to 3 full committee meetings throughout the process. They would also break up into subcommittees. I know last time these subcommittees were based on the big moves or big ideas. That could happen again, but it also could be maybe something different as we again start talking to the steering committee and see how they want to kind of break themselves out into subcommittees. And then these subcommittees are the ones that are going to really put in the effort. They're going to have their subcommittee meetings. They're going to be going out into the community. And then in addition, assistant city managers and city staff will be partnering as applicable with these different subcommittees to go with them out into the community doing these outreach groups and just kind of guide and support the work of these subcommittees from the city side. So I'm just going to quickly run through the project phases. I know I'm going to be cognizant of your guys' time here today, so I'm going to quickly run through these. You do have a handout, the 11 by 17 handout that went around. That is just a more graphic way that kind of summarizes everything I'm going to talk about, and so you can kind of follow along. So first is a project initiation phase. This phase is what it sounds like. It's more internal. It's more establishing the group's protocols, how we're going to work together, making sure our work plan is finalized. Really importantly is finalizing this public involvement plan, or what we call the PIP. So that's where all of these things I talk about today, these are just our initial ideas. There's a lot of conversations to be had around all of this engagement work. And so that will be finalized in this first initiation effort. And you can see the deliverables are kind of like our work plan, our initial project plans and things that we need to know just going forward. And again, most of the engagement at this point is going to be internal meetings, grounding the team in the project, grounding the team in Lewisville, and just kind of preparing to take on that more public process. So then these big issues, so these 4 kind of major work phases that you'll see in here, we did follow the big theme from your 2025 plan. So you'll see that we continued kind of that nomenclature. We've had some talks about whether we want to change that too. It could change if you want to, but we thought it was actually a pretty ingenious way to present things, so we stuck with that for today at least. So first is the big issues. This is our data collection phase, both quantitative and qualitative. So we'll be analyzing things like physical, social, economic, and jurisdictional conditions in the city, how those have changed since the last update that Karen did. But then on the qualitative side, it is starting our community outreach. It's doing our community touchpoint campaign, establishing those ambassadors in the committee and subcommittee, doing some of that grassroots engagement with Jennifer, having our first big town hall. And the goal there is really just to identify those big issues, so that qualitative information on top of our quantitative data that we'll be collecting. So we'll really be looking at, informing the public that this plan is happening, that this process is happening, and how they can get involved going forward. And then identifying those big issues, being experienced, so it's that experiential data, and what people are feeling in the community, what are they being impacted by. And then the next phase is the big ideas. So this is kind of our visioning phase. So now we know what some of the issues are. What's the vision for the future then? What are we trying to work towards in the 2035 plan? So revisiting those focus areas that were in your 2025 plan, the diversity, connectivity, resource management, and growth, those might still be applicable. They may not. We might want to add something. We might want to change something there. Future scenario planning and identifying kind of this future state. What are we all trying to work for and aligning in that vision? And then identifying those big ideas that kind of moves the city towards that future vision. So the engagement here is, again, the steering committee, the grassroots engagement. The community ambassadors will be continuing their work through this phase. We'll have our second big town hall meeting, and then we'll do a council briefing at this point where we come back to the council and say, here's what we're hearing, here's what we've done, here are the outcomes of the work so far. And again, the goals of this is just really identifying that future preferred state that the community wants to see, and really starting to get that community involved in the co-creation and the buy-in of these big ideas that are coming out. Then we have the big moves. So this is more of our strategies. We're trying to take that vision and turn it into strategies. Again, you have big moves in the 2025 plan, so it's revisiting and confirming those, or changing them as needed, updating. And then this is really, we're looking at providing those objectives and the strategies that support those big moves in the vision, or the big ideas from the vision. So engagement at this point, again, it's very similar to the last one. We'll continue the committee meetings, the neighborhood outreach, and another town hall, another council briefing. We added the community tours to this one. So this is like if the subcommittees wanted to really get out in the streets of Lewisville and look at things while they're talking about them. That's a very effective way to have conversations about land use, is actually to get out there, land use envisioning and stuff like that. So, if we're talking about bicycle infrastructure, let's go walk around and look at some bicycle. Maybe we rent some bikes and ride around. So those community tours can be, again, part of that engaging and interactive engagement. And so this one will really be identifying those big moves that need to happen in order to see progress, and again, continuing that idea of community co-creation and buy-in throughout the whole process. Because what we don't want to happen is that we come to adopt this and people are like, I've never heard of this. That's the worst thing that can happen, right? And so we want people to be involved and feel like this is their plan. This is what I always say, like, we're the consultants, we're here to kind of shepherd the process, but this is your plan. Your plan as the city council, as the city organization, but also as the community. So then we've added one more to your big things. So big achievement. Friesen Nichols, we're really interested in implementation. That's one of our big things. We're very big on implementation, not just talking, but actually doing. So this big achievement phase is the last of our kind of big primary work phases. And this is where we take and summarize all of those strategies into an executable and implementation plan. So this is very clear actions. Do these things in order to achieve those big moves and big ideas. And so we present that in a kind of very clear action plan matrix that the city staff can then use and the departments can use to kind of check off what they're doing. And this also includes like data and metrics and how you're measuring performance and things like that. So then we'll continue our engagement efforts and have a final kind of town hall meeting for our major work phases. And again, making sure that stakeholders are excited. That's what we want to see at the end of the process, right? Is that people who have been involved are really excited at the end of this for what we've created together, and that they know how to keep the city accountable for this going forward. These kind of plans are an accountability tool for the community to be able to come back to city council and say, we said we wanted to do this, why aren't we doing it? So then the last phase is finalization adoption. Just like initiation, it's what it sounds like. It's where we compile the full draft of the vision plan. It's where we do rounds of reviews and revisions. And then we ultimately take it to P&Z and council adoption, as well as, before we do that, an online public review and comment. So that's kind of like the community's, hey, here's the draft of the plan. Here's your final look at it. Let us know what you think before we take it for adoption. And then ideally, we have a celebration event. I've heard stories, Wendy has told me, about the 2025 celebration event. So we're going to do another one of those this time. So just the last two slides here. Wendy mentioned that sustainability and resilience is my passion. When I was at the City of Austin, I was actually with the Office of Sustainability. So definitely this is something I'm super excited about that you guys are interested in. So you have a sustainability action plan. So number one, this process is an opportunity to educate the public on this plan that you already have. But number two, what we've been asked to do is actually take those strategies and KPIs from the Sustainability Action Plan and work them into this Vision 2035 plan. And then that would be able to kind of replace the Sustainability Action Plan is what we've heard the intention is. And I think that's a very smart way to go about it. I don't like having sustainability and resilience separate. I like it to be kind of the lens through which we do everything and make all of our decisions and recommendations. So I love this approach, really excited about it. And this was just kind of an example of looking on the left side. Those are the topics that are in the sustainability plan right now. On the right are your existing focus areas in your 2025 plan. And this is just an example of how some of those topics could be worked into kind of this larger vision plan, understanding that the things on the right might change through this process. So that is everything that I have to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I know that we are a little bit behind time, but I did want to have a small, brief discussion on the big theme. So we went back and forth as staff and with the consultants, and I just want to make sure I have buy-in, or if you guys don't want to continue that theme, I'm happy we can pivot. But one of the things we were considering is we want this to be innovative. We want things to be not totally entrenched in what we've done in the past. This should be, a new snapshot of time. But on the other hand, we have such success with 2025 with the big moves. People know the big moves. And so we felt, ultimately staff felt with the consultants, that keeping that theme of big and carrying it forward, it doesn't necessarily limit us in what we're going to do, but it does ground us in kind of the history that where we started. And I wanted to get y'all's input on that.
I'm a big believer of if something's working, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So I love that we're having some consistency on, because we have not just used this plan, we didn't just adopt this plan and then put it on the shelf. We integrated it into pretty much everything we do. And it's working really well, and we all understand it, and I think the community understands it as well. So I don't think that there's a reason. We can still have new ideas incorporated in without having to change the overall structure, because it's not broke. So let's keep it.
So I'm over here laughing to myself because this is why I love this council, because we just see things differently, right? I used a word that I was going to use myself, but I was going to say, let's go break something. Because I really, stand on the shoulders of what we've done, let's go forward, let's go do something different, let's be bold. But this is why I love having yin to my yang over here to talk about, different things. That doesn't give you guys much direction. You're hearing two different, polar things, but I want to be bold. Yeah, let's go, we did some great things, let's build, and let's don't tear it down and throw it away, but let's build on it and do something else. If we break something, we break something. I'm okay with that.
So does that mean, yes, you like to keep the big theme, or you want to?
I like the big theme. I'm going to challenge you to think bigger than that. So I like the themes that we have out there are fine. The overall objectives could be larger. I'm open to being aggressive.
I see. So I think what I'm hearing is you're saying the term big moves is fine, but what those big moves are not limited.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yes.
To clarify, that's pretty much what I'm saying as well. I like the structure of using the big ideas, big issues, the big moves. But as far as what those are, I do think there's some that are still going to qualify and going to roll forward, but I'm all about if there's something, a lot has changed since we originally wrote this plan. So if some of those things change, I think that's fine, but the structure of the plan and the idea of, we all understand what those big moves are, or at least when we say not necessarily specific what each specific one is, but the idea of what a big move is it means this is something that's really important that we're focusing on. That's what I'm trying to, so I think actually we're saying a lot of the similar things.
Yep.
Just in a different way.
Yep, absolutely.
You're good with the theme of big?
I am, but I don't want it to be the barrier. That's an open door.
Yep.
That you can, you know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm good with it. It almost seems like big moves. We should trademark that, but But yeah, I'm good with it.
Having been involved from the beginning of 2025, I'm definitely in favor of continuing and improving and enlarging and making it even bigger.
The bigger big moves.
Bigger big moves.
I kind of want to argue with Patrick and Christian, but I mean, I agree with both of them. No, I think keeping it somewhat similar so people can feel the growth of it and feel a part of it. And the plan itself has evolved since 2025. I mean, so that's one of the secret sauces in our plan is that we actively use it. So keeping the big name is fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think we definitely need to just, we're going to validate the past, and we're going to use that as a launch pad. I am really disappointed that nobody said we want to move to bigly moves, but okay.
I do have a tactical question real quick, and I know we're a little bit behind. We'll make it fast. Can we go back to slide 9, please?
And while you're getting to that, if I could make one other additional comment about the discussion you all just had. When we started the update of the 2025 plan in 2019, we had a similar sort of discussion, and some of you will recall that. And when we did that first plan, there were 9 big moves. In the course of the community input, staff discussion, council direction, the plan that is in existence now has 7 big moves that combine some of those, as well as 3 strategic moves. And all of that was basically following a direction such as you've just reinforced today. So I think from the standpoint of myself and from the standpoint of the team, we'll be looking for those opportunities to break things or change things. And, in fact, I was looking back at that one of the things that got combined was a big move about existing neighborhoods and a big move about new neighborhoods in the first plan, and we combined those two, and when I went back and looked at it, it's talking about anticipating the annexation of Castle Hills.
Yeah.
So a big change that's happened since the last time.
So thank you for that. So real quick here, whenever I see a cohort carved out specifically, like we see in the Latin Hispanic population there, it just catches my eye. And I was saying it's good or bad. I agree we got to try to engage everybody. What my ask of this is, one, how do we know that worked? If we're going to focus resources and time on that, what's the percentage? What's the number of people? How do we know that that's successful?
Thank you for your question. So Rayo has worked in the past with the city of Lubbock. So a lot of the mechanics that we are using here, we've already used with them. This is like 2 years ago. We helped them develop 2 neighborhood land use plans and their citywide neighborhood land use policy. And this basically what we're pitching to here is what we've already done with those 2 plans. And then also right now is what we're continuing to actively work on. So it's like nothing new that we are trying. It's more like just moving the strategy here.
Sure, I understand it's a strategy, but Claire knows where I'm going with this. I'm going to ask her.
I was about to say, can I translate?
Yes, I'm going to ask her when we get together and say, what's the KPI? What's
That's exactly right. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to do on a number of engagement points, and Richard, remind me, how many people did we get in 2025 last time?
Actually, the update was right at 4,000, so I think our goal is to double that to 8,000.
Yeah, so talking about trying to be bold, my goal is to double the number of touch points we've had with individual people, no duplications on that. I don't know, when we're getting engagement, it's not that we're asking people their demographics when we get engagement. I'm not asking, are you Hispanic or not, so I'm not keeping track of how many people. I don't think we had tracking on like what your demographics were before versus now. So I can't say I want to double the amount of Hispanic voices in the room. Really for us, and we can try to work on what those KPIs look like, especially going forward. I think that for us, this is just the reason why, and I know your point is like when we are calling one group out, we're going to be calling out many groups.
Sure, that's my next follow-up to this.
Last time with Karen helping us with our update, each director was in charge of a different subsect of the community to go out and try to get, and came up with a different strategy for each on how to engage with that group. So like, for example, Carolyn Booker and myself were tasked with the PTAs. And so we were out there communicating with the PTAs, and we had a different strategy for that. We had small businesses. We had, faith-based institutions and things like that. We have tried to make inroads through Hispanic churches, but I will be frank that we've just not had great success. And so that is why we're kind of doubling down. We're doubling down on a community that we have not seen success in before.
Right, and I probably should have started with the second part of that first so that it hits the room as I wanted it to hit, which is because I would like to do is when we find out how we measure success and what is successful, how do we take that to left-handed people? How do we take that to the Islamic community? How do we take that out to other groups that feel marginalized in the process? That's what I was trying to get to, but you can't do that unless you know what success looks like. So that's my challenge to you is help us figure out how we measure this effort and what can we take as a learning to take that out to the next demographic that we do.
I think when you look at our overall demographics of our community, we have a very large Hispanic population. Sure. But their presence was not noticeable during any of our engagements. Now, we knocked it out of the park on almost every single other aspect of our community. So we don't want to leave anyone behind, and that's why we have this focus on that effort.
And I get it, and I think that's the right place to focus. So don't lose the message here for that. That could say anything. It could say any demo. It could say bald people. It could say whatever you wanted to say. It doesn't matter to me. But how do we take those learnings and then take that to the next cohort? Every project we do as a city, I always say, well, why did you start working on that street, not that street over there? Why are you doing that ramp instead of this other ramp over here? Why the library? Why not the police station? This is just another example of that. So I'd like to take these learnings, but you can't do it if you can't measure it. So I want to measure it, and what can we use for the next cohort? That's all I was trying to say.
Well, and I think what I hear Claire saying is that we're calling this one out separately because we have a third-party team that's engaging this specific group, but from the staff perspective, we are still doing a very targeted approach on a whole bunch of other groups as well.
We are, but I do think, I agree 100%. I do think Patrick's comment is good, though, and I think it goes back to something that Rio Planning said earlier, which is when you have boots on the ground, and we've seen this, especially I've seen this with our parks team. For example, when I go, I went to one of the Chin events, and when I go out there, I see all the Chin kids that they know our parks employees by name. Our parks employees know them because they've continued to show up for these people, that they have a relationship. Part of that is having capacity on a staff level, but I also think this is really, I'm seeing this as an opportunity, not just for the Latina community, is to, what kind of resources need to go in to show up and consistently to have those people gain those trust, and not just Hispanic, to do across the board. So I totally get where you're coming from. You complete me. So I think that's a good point.
I'll just jump in real quick. I think this is very important because when you look at the census and the percentage of the community that the Latino community makes up, and the percentage of those people who are active in Lewisville, whether on boards or anything like that, even considering running for council, I think it's important that they understand that this city government is there for them as well. And so you got to meet people where they are. Mayor Durham did the Let's Learn Lead for the African American community. I think we need to try to push these things. And I think to what Patrick was saying, the KPI will be, you can look at who's on boards, who's active in these different groups that we have in the city now and afterwards. And I think you'll see, I think this would be a good way to get those numbers improved and get representation.
That's it.
We need?
Yep.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to water rate structure and rate changes.
Thank you, guys.